and welcome to the Women Arise podcast. I'm your host, Neely Hicks, and with me today is the church family who live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We have Casey and Lora and their daughter, Shandiin. So welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have y'all with us. So we're going to dive right in, and I want to start out with just asking you how you first came to know about Tamar and the Triumph Over Trauma resources.
So about almost a year ago, our friends, which is also Carol Lakota Easton and Michelle LeClock, they had reached out to several ministries, Native ministries in particular, across the U.S. And Good Medicine Way is one of the ministries where we received an announcement of the two of them hosting the Tamar curriculum and facilitators training. And from that training, there was probably about 25 of us from from Alaska all the way to North Carolina. And we were one of the participants. And so that's how we became familiar with Tamar. But I should backtrack also. What year was it, Shandiin? Early 2023, Good Medicine Way went through an informed trauma training, and Shandiin was our facilitator. And it was through Shandiin's efforts with Good Medicine Way staff where she had also introduced us first to the Tamar curriculum. So actually, now that I remember, all of the Good Medicine Way did become certified facilitators through Shandine's facilitation, and then we had all patched in online with one of the weekend trainings. So that happened first. That happened first, and then months later, Carol Lakota Easton had reached out to the Native ministries that she is familiar with across the country, and then we just blended the two efforts for Good Medicine Way to launch the Tamar training.
That's great. That's great. And it's so encouraging to hear that you started out with a group of 25 people who, were brought into this and started to understand here's what we can do. And then moving forward together from all of these different locations throughout the U.S.
Right. It was, and that was also a chance for all of us to renew friendships as well as gain new friends from across the country that are in Native ministry.
Mm-hmm. So, Shandiin, you had a pivotal role in this, in introducing other people and offering the training, the just the myriad of things that you did, because there's so much also creativity that you bring to this. Can you talk about the context supplement that you use?
Yes. So my role began by getting connected with Carol and Michelle through Tamar's Triumph Over Trauma training for facilitators. So myself having had gone through that, then sharing and, being able to support Good Medicine Way staff in their training as they were seeing an influx of different community members, and they felt it was important to be trained in this. And then when Lora was able to get connected with Carol and Michelle too, to bring in this healing circle curriculum, Lora reached out to me with my background, and it just so happened I'm a licensed clinical therapist. And so I have a licensed master's social work degree and licensed in the state of New Mexico. And so bringing in it kind of like all the stars aligned to where being able to support in an Indigenous perspective, bringing healing in a community forum. So that's where like my role, coming in not just with to support as a licensed professional, being around and being available to the community members, but also in the debriefing with our staff members, but also in regards to developing what is this going to look like for our community, and being sure that it aligns with both the curriculum, different Indigenous, perspectives and the framework to provide it to the community, but also that if something's out of the realm, being able to do some checks with it. It's like, where's something that, all right, we're venturing into something more of a licensed area, that we want to do some CYA so that, Good Medicine Way, the ministry, each of us and our professional areas, we're not crossing those lines either, but still developing something that's very holistic and community focused. And so putting on not just my license hat, but my community member hat too, to be able to help create this.
That's terrific. So, with the creativity that you've used, a couple of things that stand out to me are one, that you do 8 sessions, and so I want to hear about this from all of you. Casey, I'd love to hear from you as well. And then also the use of art as part of healing from trauma.
Okay, so in art design here in Albuquerque, the Tamar curriculum has 7 lessons. But what we have done is we've created one additional session, which we call the Introduction and Orientation. And this gave us an opportunity to meet individuals who are interested in the program, give them an overview of what we would be covering in terms of the subject matter, and do some, whether it's icebreakers to get to know one another. And it gave us a chance to, like you were saying, some art. And I'll just show you a quick example. During that first session, we made name tags, and we would have beads available and string, and
Great.
they were able to create their own name tags with their own beaded lanyards. Again, as an activity to create camaraderie. And then we would also feed them. We would provide a meal. And so with all of our sessions, we would provide a meal because, for busy folks, it's just one less thing they have to worry about before coming to the program. But putting all of, the introduction of the orientation piece into the program, we felt like that was very important, because we're talking about trauma and the effects of trauma. We want to be a trauma-informed base group. And so having an opportunity to reveal to the participants, or even the prospective participants, that this is what we're going to do for the next 7 weeks in the lesson. To me, I feel like it's giving them a chance to hear about the program, maybe reduce down some anxiety of what am I going to get into, and who is facilitating the group, giving them an opportunity to build some trust and reduce down any potential fears. So I thought that's very important, especially because the content is, we're talking about trauma, the effects and experiences of it.
I'd like to build off a little bit on that. When you talk about creativity and some of the different things we have used, we to start off each session, we've brought in the use of a candle and the fire for some representation of what, and that can mean different things to different people. Another thing we like to do is a check-in in the beginning, and we use similar to like a talking stick in which one of our participants, decorated. We use a spoon. So it's kind of a talking spoon that we pass around. And she was able to, one of our participants in our first cohort was able to paint that and design it for us. And towards the end of our sessions, we also like to do some mindfulness and some just kind of resetting as they get ready to leave for the day, being able to do a check-in. And that's something important for me, is being able to check in with each member of the community and to seeing what kind of space they're in. If there's something we need to, if I need to walk out with them, or if we need to, step into another room, having that available in case something is to, whether a triggering or a reminder of some kind came in. But also each session we use water to be able to kind of drink all together. The facilitator that day would be able to pass that all out. And we kind of do it as a just kind of also a resetting, if there were tears shed, replenishing that. And also just being able to, like, a cleansing way of like being able to wrap up what we did today together. And so between the fire, water, and different breathing exercises too.
That's, I love that. And I want to dive in a little bit deeper to the symbolism of replenishing your tears. Can you talk about like where that comes from and how that's addressed in the beginning of the session?
I'll share on that. So, here in the United States, there's 574 federally recognized tribes. And so in New Mexico, there are 23 federally recognized tribes. I am Navajo or Diné, and Casey, he's Pokagon Potawatomi. Shandiin is our daughter. And even though there's 574 federally recognized tribes, there are some universal teachings that you would find across all of the tribes. And so one of the elements, water, is considered a sacred medicine. And when we're looking at ceremonially that opportunity where people and individuals are expressing physical, mental, emotional, social, other areas and aspects of their lives. And sometimes all of that is inside us. And so when it's expressed and coming out, sometimes it's coming out in tears. And so for that balance in our teaching is that as tears are coming out, you can replenish that with fresh water, with fresh medicine. My father says, and he has since passed, my late father, Curtis Morgan, he has said, "Twa be'ina," water is life. And so even with those three words, water is life, "Twa be'ina," there's a wholeness of teaching about what it means that medicine fulfills your life. It touches all aspects of your life. And so we incorporate that into our program, and we call it Circle of Healing, Gently Unwrapping Trauma Through Community Education. So it's a long title, but we feel it's important that we integrate our native teachings into this program so it builds the richness of the 7-week program from the
Yes.
lens and perspective of us as Indigenous people.
That's beautiful. Something before we started recording, you also showed me a dream catcher. And can you talk about that?
Yes, so I will show everyone. So The dream catcher is a representation of the teachings of our medicine wheel. And you could also find this in the Native American supplement. And then there again is also universal teachings about the medicine wheel and the colors. And so with the seven lessons that we have through Tamar, we also include the medicine wheel teaching, and there are 7 parts to this medicine wheel or the dream catcher. We call it a medicine. In this case, we're calling this a medicine wheel. So we go through each of the 4 colors. So this would be lesson 1, 2, 3, 4. And then one strand here would be lesson 5. This would be lesson 6. And this would be lesson 7. And so every participant, by the end of the last session, would have their medicine wheel. And this would be a visual reminder of not only the Tamar lessons, but how it integrates into our Native American teachings of the medicine wheel of health and wellness.
Mm. I love that visual representation, because when we have something that we can take home and touch that becomes a physical reminder of something we've learned, it can really help us when we're struggling to recall the community that we found in that group. You also talked about the interesting developments that happened when you were able to hire a behavior specialist position and the difference that that made.
So early on, after we received the training on the curriculum and then the training on the Native American supplement, and knowing our community, knowing the effects of trauma, whether it's historical trauma or even contemporary trauma, things that have happened in the present day or the present time. We could look at the data and see the effects and how Native women in particular have a higher rate of surviving through trauma. And so with the topics of Tamar, I felt like there may be individuals in our program that, depending on any of the topics, whether they get triggered or not, that having a behavioral health specialist in the room could observe, do her assessments and in her training. And if a person needs to step out, then she could accompany them, take them to a different room, have their quiet time and do what she is skilled to do. And then I, as a facilitator, would continue with the lesson with the other individuals. And so in our first program, because right now, currently, we're in our second program of launching the Circle of Healing, there had been moments where a person has stepped out of the room and Shandiin accompanied them, and then I continued on with the lesson. And so with the second round of the program, which I think is amazing, is that we have 3 individuals from the first program who have expressed interest to become co-facilitators with me. So we created train the trainers of facilitators, and now, as a matter of fact, tonight is lesson or session 6 out of our 8 weeks. And so we have 3 other individuals that lead the lessons with me, and then Shandiin's available also to integrate her knowledge and experience and from her perspectives into the lessons each night.
Mm. So, what is some of the feedback that you're hearing from people who participate? Anything that you can share?
Um, so one thing that the Tamar curriculum did not have that I saw was an evaluation tool. Other than, I think at midpoint there is an evaluation tool with 5 questions, but I wanted to have an outcome based tool. That's just this side of my brain that loves evaluation. And so um, I created a tool, and then I also had Shandiin and Carol and Michelle also look at the tool for their input before we actually administered it last session, and we're going to do it again. And the feedback is um, the increase of their knowledge, their increase of skills, especially with the breathing and relaxation. And I know that is part of the curriculum is the mind body skills and relaxation and breathing. And their, I guess, a a different perspective and a different meaning in a positive way. The different perspective of how to handle situations if they should come about um, dealing with trauma. And I think one aspect of this is trauma doesn't have to be something that has been so horrific, but I know women have experienced that. But also, there are levels of trauma that have affected an individual that still have benefited from the program.
I'm thankful to hear that. Casey, what are your thoughts about the program?
Well, Good Medicine Way provided a platform where we were integrating different folks into the ministry uh, who we were new to us. And then even within our core group, we were finding that there were issues happening within our group that uh, Tamar instruction here might be able to deal with. And that's how we opened the door to have Shandiin come in and give us that training. So, Good Medicine Way is a ministry that is unique in that we are breaking from a traditional model of doing church to restructuring, decolonizing, so that there's a way for Native people to connect in a Christian form to within their own cultural context, rather than being, you know, totally told to do church in a white Western way. So when we opened the door for the training, it just provided a creative platform because we were being so creative. And when we introduced the Tamar and Shandine's first talk, that just gave more expression for them to be creative. And then that opened up the door for Lora to uh, connect with Carol and Michelle, and then it just kind of blossomed from that. But the starting point was Good Medicine Way provided a unique place for this to germinate, and then it grew from that.
I thought about the truth telling summit that Reverend Murray is leading when you spoke about the decolonization of the church. And so I don't know if you would like to add anything more to that, Casey.
Well, I've been in this realm for some time now. I got my degree from Fuller Seminary in missiology. I didn't go the direction of an ordained ministry with a master's of divinity. I wanted to know how practically can we incorporate active change in the Native American community, and it didn't seem like the white Western Church was meeting any of those needs. So decolonizing, like Murray, myself, and many others have done, has created a safe place for people to come and express themselves where they will be heard. and not put down. But if they need more counsel, they have myself and they would have Lora and Shandiin to also talk with. But creating this new approach to ministry has just opened many different doors. And I work in another whole division of a group who created a whole new seminary uh, where half, 98% of us are Indigenous professors in this new seminary, fully accredited by Association of Theological Schools. And that has just launched another whole dimension where John Dean and some of her colleagues are going to be active in this year's symposium. So it's things are growing from that as well. And there's a whole new movement that I've been involved in and they are involved in as well. And it's just branching off in many directions now that is, I believe, helping our Native community deal with a lot of unresolved issues and trauma that we grew up with. And it resonates in us today that we are still feeling.
You talking about safe space, I know that is something that I've seen in your work, that is at the very beginning of the sessions. And so any closing words about the importance of safe space in healing?
Sure. So the terminology safe space kind of over the last about decade or so has kind of, not necessarily it grew, it kind of became a buzzword because that safe space and there's also brave space, that there is a two-way street type of relationship. Like we can provide something for you, but also having members being an active participant in that, in that forum, in that space. So for us being able to create Circle of Healing, we found it was important, generally not to just have a bunch of agreements that we're going to have, but being able to list out how we're wanting to make it an active and tangible, safe environment, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually safe and also want to add environmentally. That's what we started to do this second program, and being able to encompass that, and that it's an ever growing and ever learning for us as facilitators, but also ensuring that our participants are members of that community to help create it to be space. So there's a lot of calling in this invitation, that it's not a calling out type of scenario of wanting to get people to talk, but it's a calling in. And that naturally starts happening when you have facilitators that have the background experience, life experience, as well as, whether it's educational knowledge and training, all the way from our leadership, from Casey to Lora to those doing the boots on the ground work, that it's just woven all the way through there, that is able to create this program. And versus, here are all the agreements we're going to do together as a group, but it's definitely woven throughout, Good Medicine Way ministry, all the way to having this supplemental program, but all the way into like the hearts who are doing the facilitation, all the way down to we have our three, co-facilitators that are wanting to venture into this too, because we know there's such a need there.
A safe space is what we all need for healing and for really coming alive. And I thank God for each of you and all the gifts that you're bringing into your community and making a difference in lives. So, any closing words?
I think I just want to, refocus all of the efforts that come through Good Medicine Way, and more particularly with the Circle of Healing, is that we all have knowledge, skills, abilities, life experiences. I think that what bringing those in and those contributions and the participation from the participants all create a beautiful program and a beautiful healing program, but that I want to give all of our efforts and the outcomes that come from that, I want to give that, I want to give that to our Heavenly Father, to honor Him, praise Him, that we have an opportunity to be helpers in the community for healing, and that all of these good efforts are for His glory. We're just the workers behind the scene because we want Him to be up front and to be glorified in what we do. So, sorry, that's my closing remarks, is that I don't, yes, we're involved and there's time consumption in what we're doing, but there's a reason why we're doing this, and it's to uplift His glory with all of our efforts.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Casey, Shandiin, anything else to add?
I think we just want to affirm what Laura has just said. Yes, uh, we could be doing many other things in the secular world, but we chose to do this because we love our Native people and we hurt right along with them. And we want to have that God's grace and love to be part of their healing.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate each of you joining us today. I look forward to continuing to hear how everything goes with the ministry and give thanks that people are finding a way to a safe space and where they can be loved and accepted, find the community that they need, and healing. Thank you again. If you enjoyed this episode, I hope that you will subscribe to the Women Arise podcast and go to harperhill.global to learn about the many ways that we are helping the world. We need your support, so don't forget to give at harperhill.global/donate.